Welcome to Albinism Talk with Marvelyn, with your host, Marvelyn Green. Before I introduce our guest in the room, please follow Yell for Change on all social media platforms and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, we have two guests in the room at this hour and at this moment. They're all the way from the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the beautiful Sheida and Kayden. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? Welcome to Albinism Talk with Marvelyn.
Hello.
Hi.
Bless your Collins. So please, Kayden, introduce yourself so the world can know who you are.
Um,
What's your name?
Kayden,
And how old are you?
8 years old.
Amazing. And Sheida, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sheida Bunley. I actually have two children, but Kayden is the one that's albino, and I do live in the United States, and I'm 35.
Amazing. Quick introduction. That was fast, sis. Yes. Yeah, it's nice to know that. So, all right. So let's get into it now because you said you have two children
Yes.
and one
I got
came out with albinism, which is Kayden. So the question I'm gonna ask you is when she was born, what was your first reaction when you see her with blonde hair and her skin would just look different? What was your experience like?
So that's actually funny because my doctor actually said to me after I pushed when she first came out was like, oh, she has blonde hair. And I'm actually looking and I'm like, oh, that's weird. But her dad actually has blonde in her hair. And so when we asked the doctor, was she albino? The doctor said no, she took after her dad because her dad has blonde and gold in his hair and he's a little lighter. So it wasn't until she was around 6 months that we found out that she was albino.
Oh wow.
Because even her pediatrician, no one knew.
Oh wow. So you found out she had albinism 6 months later. So they never told you at the beginning. So they didn't know if her hair color was blonde or her skin.
So her dad is like a light skin. And
Yeah.
her dad has blonde in his hair, red in his hair, and like a goldish blonde. So the doctor who delivered her said she took after her dad. And when I took her to her first pediatrician appointment, they didn't say she was albino either. It literally took her emergency room appointment for doctors who say something. And I actually switched pediatricians when that happened because I'm like, you can't be a good pediatrician if you couldn't even tell. So
Oh, amazing. Oh, wow. So that's interesting, though. So,
yes.
what are the challenges you faced with Kayden, like when she was born? What challenges did you face?
We didn't face any challenges when she was born. I think the only thing that has been, and I won't say it's been a challenge, it has been a little difficult, is her vision problems. She started wearing glasses around 6.5, 7 months. So she's been wearing them up until now. And she did have surgery on her eyes a few years back that has corrected her because her eyes cross. So that's what it corrected. So I think that's the only, I would say that. And then I think the only challenge I really get is the stairs.
Wow, I was gonna ask you about that. I was gonna ask you about that.
What's
Yeah,
the
you
state?
took that. I was still ask you. So with that, no, you brought that up, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. So do you get the stairs from an internal or external?
I will say since she's gotten older, it hasn't been as bad. When she was younger, I would say 2 and under.
Mm-hmm.
It was problematic because I've had people argue with me about her. I've
Okay.
had, yes, I had one person follow me around the store, and I asked her, I'm like, can I help you? She was like, oh, she's beautiful. I said, thank you. And then she kept following me. So when I said something to her, she was like, well, are you sure she's yours? Should I call security? And I'm like, call
Wow.
security?
Call security?
Because she thought I
Oh,
stole her. And I told her to go ahead and call security. I said, because after security harasses me, I'm going to sue you.
mm-hmm.
So
Oh, wow.
I think I've had about maybe 3 or 4 incidents, but that's probably the worst it's gotten when
Oh
she
my
threatens to call
God.
security.
Oh my God. Oh wow. So because of the, I think because of the fact that of the two tones of skin, so she probably think, okay, this girl must be some baby snatcher or something, but with all hindsight, it's wow. Some
And yeah, and I
wow.
feel like that's why education is key because
Yeah,
again, I didn't know about albinism before I had her, but I
yeah.
wasn't rude enough to say that to people like, "Oh, did you kidnap a child?"
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, and then it doesn't help that we don't look alike, even, but she looks just like her dad.
Yes.
So that's that I think to me also became an issue because they're like, okay, you don't look alike, and then you're two different complexions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Who cares? She's my
Thank you.
daughter.
Yeah,
So
you gave birth to her,
yes.
and she gives birth to, and obviously I can tell she loves her daddy.
So,
She's a daddy's
yeah.
girl. So, um, so now you know that you've got a child with albinism, and on one of the things that I got to learn about this condition is that anybody, I mean anybody and everybody is a carrier of the albinism gene.
Yes.
And it's something that people need to learn. And as you said about educational side of things, people need to know that why ridicule somebody or why make a person feel dehumanized or ostracized of something that you're all carriers of, because it may not happen now, but 3, 4, 5 generations down the line, you could have a family member that will probably will born this way. And for me, I'm the only child from my parents, but I'm also the only one in my family that has albinism. And my journey with this, it's something. When I was Kayden's age, I used to question myself, like, why am I made this way? I'm like, mama or my grandma, I'll be like, I want to look like you. And back home in Jamaica, like, they really took care of my skin, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're beautiful, quote unquote. And just, they just made me feel that support and whatnot. So I mean, it's just that some people don't have knowledge of it and some people do. So maybe in your scenario, the person that followed you around didn't know or are not aware of albinism. So I'm so sorry that you actually went through that experience. It's horrible to know that people can be so quick to assume something.
I feel like she was also older. So I feel like that played a part in it because as
Mhm.
I stated, I haven't really went through anything like that since before Kaden was 2. She's 8 now.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of, oh, she's pretty, she's beautiful, but I don't get any of, is she your child or anything like that. So
Hmm. That's
I
good.
I will say this. I will say that I'm not upset about what happened. I feel like when you have
So
a
you
child,
shouldn't.
yeah,
You
I feel like
shouldn't.
when you have a child as special and unique as her, it doesn't
Listen,
matter.
she's my niece. She's my niece. You listen, if there ever a time I'll come to the United States, I'm coming to see Kayden.
So I would just say that. So basically, I do believe education is key, but then also it does play a factor in people, I believe, is being respectful, because the way she
Yes.
came off was disrespectful.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't. Yeah, that's not cool. That's not cool. For somebody to really do that. I mean, I've never really experienced that with my mom, but I can imagine, Jamaican people, sometimes they don't have no filter sometimes. But I'm gonna ask you, right, I'm gonna go to the school side of things now with Kayden. Is there any special accommodations put in place for her in school?
there is special accommodations because of her vision. So
Yes.
she gets to sit closer to the teacher or the board.
Yes.
She does get special accommodations and more time with testing and things like that.
Hmm.
So the school has been very supportive. And actually, when I first had her, my because my son is 8 years older, actually one of the counselors at his school had albinism, so she definitely talked to me and helped me as well. So I have not had a problem with the school system at all with that.
Oh my God, that's amazing because do you know what really concerned me is that where a child with albinism goes through, outside worlds, and kids can be very mean and
Yes,
savage too, So, um, the
I
question,
will say,
yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off. I will say, so
okay,
I haven't had an issue with the school with it. She has come home several times saying she's got in arguments with her friends because they think she's Caucasian, and she has to explain
hmm,
to them that she's not.
hmm.
So that's the only thing we've had to deal with in school. The kids her age not understanding that it's albinism instead of they think she's Caucasian.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
I
Yeah, I really, really get that. You know, I actually faced that very same similar situation. People do class me as mixed race as well,
Yeah.
and some people ask me if I was if my parents were white. You know, but I would tell you this: when I was 12 years old, that's when I got to find out I had albinism. I knew my side. I knew something was different about me, but when I came to the UK and I went to school and they sat me down, the special needs teacher came to me and explained to me, you have albinism and why you have to sit in front of the class. I hated that, I'm not going to lie. I hated it, but it was something to really help me to do my work effectively. And I know exactly what Kayden's going through. Obviously, kids are going to question her race and identity, and that is a crossover point for her as well. So I do understand that people are going to ask questions and people are going to say, oh, is she white? Is she adopted? Them kind of questions that they will probably ask about Kayden. But she knows who her parents are, and that's the main thing, that she knows who her mom and dad, and she knows she's got a loving family and loving people that love and support her. And the question I want to ask you, Sheila, is this: as a mother, how how do you feel about having Kayden as a person with albinism?
And it's very glad that you asked me that question,
Hmm.
because going back to when we found out she had albinism, we took her to a geneticist,
Hmm.
and they said me and my husband both carried the trait. And because I had siblings, they said, "Oh, well, if you get pregnant again, it's a chance you can have another albino child, or that your sisters can. They want to get tested." And we
Yeah,
both said the same thing. It
yeah.
doesn't matter. It's not a it doesn't matter just because you have albinism. It doesn't matter. So I feel like I don't feel any different. I have two children. I don't feel any different because she has albinism than I do about my other son.
Hmm.
So to me, it doesn't make me a difference.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked you this question is because in Africa, I done a talk, the very first albinism talk 2 weeks ago. And one of the listeners was saying in this Zoom talk, as we speak, that the parents hide their children. They hide their children because of the stigma in the community. And it's like they isolate their children. And I was so, oh man, Sheila, you don't understand how that made me feel. It hurt. It hurt.
So I will say this. I actually know several people who have traveled to Africa on a regular. And
Yeah.
I expressed to them that I wanted to travel to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And they did express to me how some of the people there feel about people that are albino.
Yeah.
So me and my husband did make the decision that if we were to go to Africa at this point in time, that we would not take our children, well, her, because she's younger, because of that. Because we will be in another country and we wouldn't, it'd be different from the United States. So we
Mm-hmm.
did express that we wouldn't do that. Now, if she gets older and she wants to do that, that's fine. So, but I have heard that in some cultures there, they do think they have magical and special powers. And
Yes, the mist.
yes, and I've also read online that sometimes they do kill them because of they think they have magical powers. So I
Yeah.
personally just wouldn't feel safe taking her there.
Mm-hmm. I That's understandable because lately there has been a few attacks. There was one happened in May. Oh God, I will bring this up. And now you mentioned the myths. Now we can talk about this. There was a 2-year-old baby in Zambia that had her arm amputated. Oh, welcome, Taz. I didn't even see you, sis. Welcome. Um, she had her hand amputated by two people, and they pretended that they were cops. So can you imagine? They pretended to be an officer of the law, and they basically, while the child was sleeping, they chop off the girl's hand. So, and then another situation happened again in the same Zambia last month when it was Albinism Awareness Month. They did the same thing, but then the father of the son, they catch him at caught him in time, but because of the severity of the boy's arm, they had no choice but to amputate the arm. So these things are still going on in this day and age. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought that, this thing wasn't real until I seen the videos, I seen the gravity of it. And it really did. I'm disturbed by that, Sheila. I'm really disturbed by the fact that how can you take an innocent baby, a person that can't fight, you know, you chop their hand off. That makes you a coward. Absolutely a coward.
It does, and I personally do not support anything that has a problem with albinism. I
Mm-hmm.
actually used to take my son to the circus all the time here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out a couple years ago
Mm-hmm.
that the circus, years and years ago, they would kidnap children that were albino and put them in their freak show. And the circus had, and about a month later, I actually found out the circus was having their last show. And I was so excited. I usually would have took my kids and I could have took her. But when I found that out, I refused to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
There was an article about that, about the two brothers that had
yeah.
albinism, and they made them freak shows, and obviously they were adopted from their mother, and they believed that the mother was dead or something like that. And when I read that article, I was thinking, oh my gosh, and they were called all kind of names like freak of nature. Oh God, I couldn't remember. There's so much names that they were called, but it's important that, people need to be educated about albinism, and it's not what it is. So I get it that, people don't want to go to like circuses and stuff like that. I've never been to one, so I wouldn't know what it is to go to a circus. I've been to like fun fairs and theme parks and everything, but to go to a circus, nah. And to even find out about that as well, I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in it either.
Yeah. And I think to me, be because of the awareness, I've made it a point since Kayden was a baby to I made it a point to let her know that she was African American and we were her parents, and that she's beautiful and she's no different from anyone else. Because there's so in America, there's so many people right now, well, younger kids that are being bullied or teased and they're committing suicide or anything like that. I did not want that to be an issue for my daughter. So I made sure she knew since day one, you're beautiful, you're special, you're important. Like albinism is no different from anything else. And I just like her and her friends have gotten into arguments, she knows that she is African American and her parents are black and she's black. So
Absolutely.
to me, I mean, I can't raise awareness for everyone, but in my household, as long as my child knows, that is the most important thing. And even when I had her, my son was turning 8, and I was talking to her dad something about her being albino, and
Mhm.
my son didn't know what it was. He thought we were calling her a bad name, and he was like, "Don't talk about my sister that way." And when we explained to him what it was, he understood that.
Mhm.
So I've even, I mean, even though my family knew, I've only had to explain it to my kids, but she's not treated any differently than anyone else.
Yeah. And I'm glad you've mentioned that, because albino or any, albino is a word that's descriptive. And not only a person with albinism can have this condition, plants can have it and animals can have it.
Yes.
So, and one of the things that some people may take offense, especially in the albinism community, some people may take offense to them referring them as albino, or, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I would say a PWA, person with albinism or people with albinism, because it's
Okay.
more appropriate, because it's like, I want to put it this way, like, okay, somebody was born with Down syndrome, for example. Oh, the person's like, oh, she's a Down syndrome girl, like, or a Down syndrome boy.
Yeah.
So I just see as somebody labeling Kayden or labeling me to say, oh, she's albino or albino, whatever you want to call it. But I am not defined by that. I have a
Yeah.
name. So and Kayden has a name. Kayden, is beautiful. And as I said, she's definitely beautiful. So whenever a person will be like, "Oh, are you albino?" I'm like, "I'm a person with albinism." I don't, I refer to that as, because listen, I'm not an animal. I'm a human being. Okay, and that's one of the things is about educating with Yell for Change as well. And why I started this project so much is to even there's so much kids, no melanin kids are coming after me, and they may be going through the struggle of finding themselves and not and finding a sense of belonging. And I just want to really like encourage Kayden and yourself that she does belong. She has a belonging in this world. And I don't want nobody to make her feel that she doesn't belong. She has a place in this world like anybody else. Doctors, nurses, whoever, I don't care who you are. People of color need to understand and educate themselves that albinism is not a curse, it's a genetics, and we are all carriers of it, including me, right? We're all carriers of it. I was born to two black parents. My parents are of light skin. They're not dark skinned. My mom and dad are light skinned, but my dad is lighter than my mom. The only time he's a bit darker is when he has a tan. But my dad is almost like a white man. He's almost reddish like me. So if you see my dad, you probably think, yeah, he's almost have the condition, close enough to have albinism. And these are things that we need to educate people and understand that, you know, it's a genetic, it's not a disease, it's not something you can't catch with a cold. And it's not something, it's not, you can't catch a flu with albinism. If you touch my skin now, you're not, it's not contagious. No. So these are things that we need to bring aware and to be respectful and mindful of how you approach a person with albinism, because it's something that, you know, parents, and not only a person's been affected by this condition, but family members, especially mothers, they have to deal with the stigma and the stereotype from people. And we just don't need that. We don't need that.
True.
So I want to ask Kate, where is she? She gone? Kayden, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you, what are the kids really mean to you at school when it comes to your albinism?
Nope.
Said nope. That nope was very confident.
Yeah, Kayden has a lot of friends in school. So I don't really think they so much care. Because I know the conversations she had with friends were in past years. I don't think they so much care.
Wow.
No.
Wow. See, this is what I have to do these talks with more parents, because just because a child has albinism, that don't mean they share the same experiences. I could
Exactly.
maybe do another talk with another parent, and they might say, "Oh, my child's been bullied," or my child feels shy to go out in public and so forth. But as I can see, that Kate, I know by seeing her pictures and stuff on social media, I can see that she has no problems really, and she's getting the love and support from you, your husband, and family members. So let me, speaking of family members now, so extended family, how how are they towards Kayden?
I mean, I haven't, she's more so, if she's with anyone, she's more so with my parents or my sisters, but she has been with other family. But I haven't had any family member say any, like, treat her any different than any other child in our family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to them, she's like anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say my mother, because she does spend the summers with my mother, she hasn't experienced what I have experienced when she was younger about people coming up to me, because she actually takes my daughter down south. So, and when I take her down south, I don't have that, because a lot of the kids down south are mixed. So people just assume that. So I don't have any stares. I don't have anyone coming up to me with any negative comments or anything. And my mother doesn't either when she takes her. I've only literally experienced that in my state when she was younger. So yeah.
That is awesome. That's so inspiring. I'm glad that there is some positive that is coming out of this, because when the negatives I've heard, like when I first done this, I was so overwhelmed by it. And to hear that your parents and your family are in support and loving Kaden for who she is. And that's a very, very good positives. And this is something that we need to kind of educate other folks, that it's okay to have a child that's different. It's okay to embrace that uniqueness and embrace different, because I always look at the rainbow. I use that as a scenario for me as a person with albinism. I use it as look, the rainbow is different colors. So in this world we're living in, we are one human race and we have different skin tones, just like the rainbow. Some people are dark skinned, some people are tan, some people are white, and then you've got people with albinism, and medicine man albinism comes in different shades as well. So you have people who have blonde, like really light silver hair, and their skin is even lighter than me. So I've seen people with that as well. And going to school and everything for me, but I've lived in two countries myself, so I've had the good and the bad, you know. But I also know that eh, I also know now I'm at an adult stage, you know, I love the skin that I'm in. And it's all about embracing me. But I am so glad that you, as a parent, can educate your child and let her know her identity. And I think there's a lot of people with albinism that are struggling with identity, wondering who they are. Am I black? Am I white? Am I mixed race? These are things that I will probably would hear they struggled with albinism. So, a question I would want to ask you as well, Sheena, is um, when it comes down to Kayden's vision impairment, does she have all these checkups like yearly, or is it like monthly checkups with eyes?
Um, so she's not monthly. She We just take her to the eye doctors yearly. She gets a new prescription. So the same with me. I go to the eye doctors yearly and get a checkup and get a new prescription.
Yeah.
So like I was saying earlier, the only thing that was an issue at first is because her eyes crossed too,
Or
and
is it
they
in a
did,
stagnus?
yes, and they did the surgery on that, and now she just goes once a year.
Because the nystagmus is the one that makes the eyes move and shake.
Yes.
And obviously, with that said, sometimes with me, when I'm tired, the nystagmus kicks in. And I said this to another person I was in 2 weeks ago when I done this talk. I said, look, yeah, my eyes have mood swings. Like it does that because sometimes I'm tired and when I want to do my work and like my eyes are like, oh, I can't be bothered today. And I'm just like, okay, when it's a good day, it doesn't affect me as much. But when I'm tired, or if I'm at work, or if I'm doing anything, then it decides to be like, oh, I'm tired. I'm going to shake today. I'm not gonna let you do anything today. So, with the nystagmus, um, some people have it worse than me because some people look like they've seen it goes like that, like earth, kind of like you're seeing earthquake or you feel shaking. Um, but I'm glad that her one can be corrected.
So I will say this: her nystagmus was very big, and when she was
Yeah, it
younger.
would be. Yeah, it would
But
be. It would
yeah,
be.
but now that she had the surgery with her eyes crossing, it might bother her when she's tired, but
Yeah.
that's not an all the time thing. We really don't see that much
Hmm.
of the nystagmus.
No, yeah. Because even with she taking pictures as well. Because with albinism, it comes with like sensitivity to the eyes as well. And one of the things that another condition that me and Kayden have is photophobia. And what that is when we take a picture and the camera like flashes in our eyes, and if you notice any pictures, if you notice any redness in the eye in
Yeah,
your eyes, is because that's called photophobia.
and,
Photophobia.
And it's actually funny that you said that because I'm big on pictures. So Kayden used to take pictures every month her first year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we didn't know until she was 6 months that she had albinism. So I
Yeah.
used to wonder why her eyes was red. And I
Yeah.
used to get so upset. I'm like, I just paid for pictures and her eyes are red. And then the doctor explained it to me.
Yes. It's called photophobia. Like it's where the camera flash because of the lack of melanin in the back of our eyes
Yes.
is because of that. So if you ever see that, please don't be alarmed. It's a condition that all comes with the
Yeah.
package of having albinism. I get that even on my wedding day photos, in my pictures, I love the pictures, and then I notice my eyes look all dilated and red and everything. But I love what I'm saying. Wait, I wouldn't change anything about that. And I told my husband, I said, look at this, look at my eyes looking red. And you might think I'm some kind of like zombie or something. No, it's called photophobia. And another thing that with the icon, we have multiples. We have like the one where I think the big muscle, something like that, is the one where it's when you turn. Sometimes I will, because my left eye is my weak eye, you see. So I have to turn to the side like this
Okay.
to see to turn. My right eye is my strongest, so my left eye is my weak. The vision is lower in my left eye, but my right eye is stronger than my left. So when I turn like this to see you, is to help me see better. But my right, I don't have to turn. I'll see the object coming. So the left one is like I have to turn. But yeah, so these are things that, Kayden may experience with that. Do people question her holding things up close?
Um, Kayden, do people question if you gotta hold things up close? Do they say
So
anything?
I called one.
Like when you're in school?
No.
She said no. Like I know no one in our families ever questioned it. So that was actually a good question. She said
that's
no.
quite surprising. I'm surprised because it's not people may
Well,
question
she
that.
wears glasses. So a lot of
Yeah.
people probably are just assuming it's the glasses. Like I have to hold things like this up close too because of my vision.
Yeah, my husband wears glasses and he does it as well. He does it more than me. So close up to see the small prints. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not it's I don't think this really has anything to do with albinism as well, but it kind of does in a sense of because our vision is low to the degree. Sometimes I have to hold up if it's really small and I can't see it. Even I have the glasses on, and because of the back of the eyes of detail, grammatically detail is not corrected because of the lack of melanin. I have to hold up things close to see certain things. Not everything, but certain things that helps me.
And see, and the thing about it, with even though it is, she does have the vision problems. Me, her dad, her grandparents, we all wear glasses. So even my son has to wear glasses. So we
Yes,
all, she would have had that issue more than likely anyway
yes.
if she
So
was.
for the people who are listening, listen, if you wear glasses, don't
Yeah.
be ignorant because there's times where the eyes is not always perfect. And I will share this with you that my father-in-law has glaucoma and he's legally blind and he has to wear glasses and so forth. And he has to wear a cane. So, you know, visual impairment itself is widespread. So not only in the albinism community, and as we speak now, October is blind and low vision awareness or visual impairment awareness month.
Oh, I did
And
not know that.
I found out from Noah. I don't know if you've heard of Noah.
I have heard of Noah, and when I did join Noah when she was
Mhm.
younger, and I actually shared the experience with Noah that I had with the lady when I was in the store with her in the call security. And a lot of people who said they've had those experiences, and a lot of people say they have to carry their child's birth certificate on them everywhere to prove that that's their child. And to me, when I heard that experience, I said I would not do that. I'm like,
That's a lot.
that's too much. I'm not gonna prove that that's my child. Like, I know who I gave birth to. So if someone else doesn't think I gave birth to her, that's your problem. So I was like, I'm not, and I've never carried her birth certificate on me, and I never will.
No. When they actually brought their birth, oh my God, that's a lot.
They said
Bring
they
the
have to.
birth certificate, that is a lot. That's a lot. That's oh man. Just to prove the child's documentation and your name and everything.
But my thing is, the thing that I try to, when I first thought that, my first thing is the person's picture is not on a birth certificate. So you could be pulling out anyone's birth certificate. So that was another thing that I thought, like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. So I'm like, so what am I supposed to show? Matching ID with her birth certificate? I'm like, that's doing too much. So
Wow.
I actually haven't logged on to Noah or gotten anything from them, and I would say in about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I really stopped like following them or anything after I heard those comments. To me, it just didn't make sense.
Wow.
So I haven't been in any supportive groups until now for her albinism.
You see, God, I'm speechless. Oh my God, sorry. I'm sorry, I need to catch myself up a little bit because birth certificate, that's like that. I don't know. I don't know what's worse, having adoption papers or birth certificate. I don't even know what's worse. Yeah. Woo! So with her visual impairment, because most people with albinism, um, especially when they go through the teenage years, because I've been through the whole teenage experience. Do you have any concerns about her going into that next stage externally?
I don't feel like I have any concerns. And the reason I don't feel like I have concerns is because I feel like she's going to be any other teenage girl. I was a teenage girl. I actually have a teenage stepdaughter. I have nieces. So it's just like, I don't feel like I have any concerns because she's going to be a normal teenage girl.
Yes. Sassy.
I actually have a question for you though.
Sure.
So I saw that I heard you just say you were married. And
yes, I am.
It's a two-part question. The first part, does your husband have albinism?
No.
And okay. And then the second thing is, and I've always just wondered this because I've seen like people post stuff on like social media. Do you find that people with albinism tend to gravitate more to with their mates that have albinism or no?
First, let me say, okay, my husband is a normal of dark-skinned melanin, and he doesn't even look at albinism. He doesn't even see that about me. The second part to the question is, every PWA is different because some PWAs gravitate to some people and some don't. So it all depends on the person. As for me, when I started Yell for Change, I met some people and I met a guy with albinism and he is in the States as well. And we communicate almost every week. And he's very particular with people, but it's one of those moments where it's who you feel comfortable with. That's how I see it. If you're comfortable with a person, then they'll gravitate to you.
Okay. I just always wondered that. That's why I would ask.
Yeah. It just depends really, because for me personally, I'm a people's person. I am. but I choose my circle very selectively as well. But it just depends. Like if I feel a nice vibe from you, we can maybe so and so. But it's just not every PWAs have that same mentality because some are very shy, some are timid, some are they, because of the stigma of it. Some people they don't want to mix with anyone. So as I said, it all depends on the person.
Okay.
Yeah. So with your husband, like what was his intake when he first saw Kayden? And I have to ask this question. We're married women up in here, so it's all right, what
So,
was his reaction when he found out that Kayden had albinism?
so actually, it's funny. So when I had her, when the doctor said, "Oh, she has blonde hair," he actually called me when I was in the hospital that night because they had to go to work, and he's like, "Well, ask the doctor, does she have albinism?" And
Mhm.
when I asked the doctor, and they said no, she just takes after her dad because, as I stated, my husband has like blonde and goldish brown in his hair. So he kind of already thought she was, but it's
Mhm.
just that the doctors kept saying she wasn't.
But he kind of knew then. So instincts told you that Kayden has albinism, but the doctors, and that's the thing I'm thinking, how can you not know a child just because the child, like, you should look close at the eyes as well, not just the hair, the eyes and skin. That's the thing I
So,
don't understand. Why the doctors didn't clock onto that?
and see, and that was the thing I explained to them because me having a child before, I'm like, okay,
Mm.
Kaden, I'm like, usually they're like, oh, she's gonna get darker. I'm like, usually the child's ears are already darker. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, her ears aren't darker. I don't think she's gonna get darker. And they're like, no, she takes after her dad. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking, and I'm just like, well, he does have like reddish blonde hair, but neither one of our eyes, her eyes change colors. I'm like, our eyes didn't change colors, nor were they blue or green or gray, because like the first couple months they change colors often.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I asked the pediatrician and I asked the doctor who delivered her, and they both said she wasn't. And I just found that very strange that as doctors that went to school for years, you couldn't say, especially a pediatrician, like, how didn't you know that?
That's
Like,
what I'm saying.
I
Why?
don't feel bad for not knowing because again, I wasn't like wasn't brought up around anyone with albinism, or like we didn't learn anything about this in school. So I don't feel bad that I didn't know. I feel bad that my pediatrician for my child couldn't tell. I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
picked the wrong person for my child. And that's why I changed my child. And actually, the pediatrician she's with now, she's been with since then. And she's actually across town, but she's wonderful with her, with both of
Yeah.
my kids. And I still take my kids to this day.
Amazing. That's the kind of stories that, that really baffled me. Can you not even tell that your child was blonde hair? And you could have got a second opinion then. That would have been great on that person's side of things, but it is what it is, now that she has albinism, and I just want to really encourage you as a parent to keep doing the job that you're doing because you're doing an amazing job, honestly. And these we need parents like you and your husband and other family members and even your community need people like you to educate people that don't know, right, about albinism so they can understand the condition because this condition is misunderstood a lot of the
It,
times. It's misunderstood because people look at, okay, they assume that you're white, but in all reality, obviously, albinism can occur in all different races. And one of the problems that we're having is the black race, especially because they can be very ignorant. I'm saying it. I'm talking from experience. I'm a black woman with albinism. I have no shame to name and shame black people in a sense of they need to be educated, especially in the sense of, okay, if your child, say if they present have a child with a deficiency, or educate yourself, get yourself knowledge, and understand that if you see someone with albinism, you embrace that person, make them feel love and make them feel beautiful, because there's a lot of people with albinism. They have self-esteem issues. They don't have the confidence like maybe myself or Kayden or just other PWAs that I know that are very like confident. When I say confident, just they're in their own lane. You're like, wow, where did this confidence come from? You know what I'm saying? So these are things that we gotta educate. And one of the 4 E's to yell for change is to empower. And empowering albinism is something, okay, like to really empower yourself and say, look, I'm beautiful today. Doesn't matter how much people would say or do, just encourage ourselves, And, I know that Kayden is going to be something great. She's the future generation of PWAs. And I'm so glad that we can do this talk.
Yes.
And it's worth it because I really want to do more of these talks again with parents. I want to hear more parent side of things. So yeah, so just to conclude this talk, conclude this interview with you, what message would you send out to parents who are struggling with having a child or children with albinism? What is the message would you send to parents?
My message, I would say that children with albinism are no different from you and me. And
Mhm.
if you do happen to have a child with albinism, just make sure you let them know that they are still beautiful, they are unique, they are special. There's nothing different. They're no different from any other child. You shouldn't want to label or give them a stigmatism that they think they're different and there's something wrong with it, because there's nothing wrong with having albinism.
Mhm. That's
So,
amazing. That's amazing. Because we didn't have that much people in the room. Um, I am so glad that this talk is amazing. I had an amazing time speaking with you, Sheida. Thank you for taking out your time with me on Albinism Talk with Marvelyn and Kayden as well. Thank you both so much for being a part of this talk. And this is a message that we want to really send out to people, and and just to really reassure that, as you said, that albinism is beautiful and it's not a curse. As I said, it's something to embrace and empower, and to really understand that we're no different from you. It's just melanin is missing, and that's what it is. Absence of melanin in the skin, hair and eyes. So I'm so glad today that Albinism Talk with Sheida and Kayden has been amazing. And I want to say thank you again for taking time out with me. So, guys, please follow Yell for Change on all social media platforms. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember, Yell for Albinism. Together we stand, together we can. Thank you. Much love, and God bless you.
bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.